to The Outsider's Perspective. My name's Ollie, and here's your loaf of daily bread. Today's loaf of bread comes to us by way of the trickster and teacher, Alan Watts, who says the following: "To be free from convention is not to spurn it, but not to be deceived by it. It is to be able to use it as an instrument instead of being used by it." I spend a lot of time in these videos talking about social conventions and symbols and how much of what we react to is really just a construct, a story, a narrative that the mind puts together in order to make sense of all that data that keeps flowing in. And I often say that the goal is not to ignore or cease using symbols and conventions, but rather to use them consciously. In other words, to use them while knowing that they are precisely just that. Conventions. Helpful, convenient, but ultimately they're just tools. They're not reality. So the labels that we apply to things and the categories that we create in order to organize information and make sense of all the data, those conventions are just there to help us. They're not real. So one example is the convention of race. Very useful in academia for dividing populations by appearance, by their regions of origin, etc., etc. But as soon as we forget that race is a convention and we start to think that it's a real hard distinction between groups of people, that's when we get into trouble. That's when we start thinking that one race is smarter than the other, one race is stronger than the other, that there's maybe a master race or a chosen people. And these ideas have been causing our species all kinds of trouble for centuries. So this is what Alan Watts is talking about. He's saying it's not abandoning convention, it's using conventions deliberately and knowing what they are. This is a helpful reminder for me because, like everybody else on this planet, I too get wrapped up in convention. I too lose sight of labels and start to think that they're real. I too begin to believe in my value assignments and judgments, and I start reacting to them. So it's always good to remind yourself that these things are just tools and their purpose is to be used by us. And when we lose sight of that, they start to use us instead, and that's when things go south. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you. Hope it hit the spot, and I hope you'll join me next time for another loaf of bread. Until then, live well, my friends.